What is the worst case of secondhand embarrassment you've ever experienced?
I went to my local arena to see a Motley Crue concert in like 2006. Before the show, as the stadium was filling up, all the lights were on and people were filing onto the floor section while everyone else was finding their seats. Tons of people were already seated and there was nothing going on, except someone in the upper levels pulled out a beach ball and it started getting bumped around through the crowd, slowly descending from the second level to the first level. It seemed like everyone was watching this beach ball, and then it made its way down to the empty rear portion of the floor section. A guy was walking onto the floor carrying 2 full stadium beers in his hands. He saw the beach ball and took a running start to boot the ball up in the air. He slipped backwards like Charlie Brown trying to kick the football and landed on his back while both full beers spilled directly on his face. The entire arena erupted in laughter since all the lights were on, and everyone seemingly had their eye on the beach ball. I've never forgotten that, and I bet he hasn't.
Lady on the train told off a young girl for talking too loudly. The mom explained that she's mostly deaf and can't hear herself well.
At university, we had to do presentations for our engineering projects. I was okay, nobody was great, but one guy just couldn't get the words out. He was there for 10 minutes, completely failing to speak through his short breathing. We heard about 2 full sentences the entire time. The professor just did nothing, perhaps allowing the guy to continue because not continuing would be a fail. By the end, most students were looking down at the floor. It was a very hard watch. I still think about it now and then.
My boss sneezed diarrhea at his pants during a meeting. He sneezed, and then he got really antsy and scurried out of the meeting with brown stains in the back of his khakis.
Copied a comment I've previously posted. I will never forget the time in high school I watched someone next to our lunch table roll and writhe on the ground screaming and yelling for everyone to go away because he was turning into a werewolf. The entire cafeteria went completely silent while kids and teachers were just staring at him. After a few minutes of this, he went around tables barking and snarling at people and howling as loud as he could. He eventually stopped when the police officer at our school went up to him, put his hand on his shoulder, said something to him and led him out of the cafeteria. This was over 15 years ago, and I still secondhand cringe so hard when I think of this shit.
In high school, I was hanging out with friends, and one of them excitedly revealed to us that he was in a relationship with another one. She was sitting right there and corrected him that they went on one date, and it was more of a hangout than anything romantic. He started blushing from embarrassment, and then tried to argue with her that that counts as a relationship, and the argument went on for like 30 minutes while we just helplessly watched.
In the middle of a crowded corporate office, I watched a coworker's drawstring pants fall to her ankles as she carried a cup of hot coffee in each hand from the break room back to her desk, and then panicked looking for a spot to quickly set the coffee down so she could pull up her pants. This all happened in a few seconds, too fast for me to react and help her. I felt so bad for her, OMG. If that ever happened to me, I honestly think I'd quit on the spot.
I witnessed a woman having a conversation with another woman at a party about linguistics, specifically Japanese language. The second woman's boyfriend jumped in for reasons I will never understand to add, haha, Asian dudes have small dicks. The first woman looked at him for a few seconds and said, "My husband is Japanese." Roasted fucking walked away.
My friend's dad stood up at a school talent show and started doing the Macarena to support his daughter's ballet performance. She was 16. She didn't speak to him for a week.
In a VERRRRYYYY conservative office, the director of sales walked in a kitty cat body suit costume on Halloween. It would have been a cute, appropriate costume if anyone else had dressed up. She must have forgotten that she was supposed to lead a company-wide training on a new software, which was filmed to distribute to sites in case anyone missed the training. A room packed with absolutely dead, silent people watched this woman walk through the training. In a kitty cat bodysuit costume, the training was over an hour long. It was straight out of a Parks and Rec episode. Just excruciating. I had my disagreements with this woman, but damn.
Orange Theory instructor was demonstrating the weightlifting moves to the class. Stops mid-sentence with the entire class's attention on her, points at the girl next to me, and says, "I'll be over to give you modifications," and winks. Comes over after demonstrating to the class and says, "Okay, so since you're pregnant." The girl had to awkwardly say she wasn't pregnant.
I was in college taking a final chemistry exam in a classroom full of about 100 people. The girl was apparently using AI to cheat and forgot her phone was at full volume. It was completely silent, and then you just hear, "Sure, I can help you with that," from her phone as she tries to turn the volume down.
Oh Lord, okay, so I'm driving my kids and wife back from Atlanta and it's about 3 a.m. I have to take a whiz, so we stop at a pretty small rest area. I walk in and there are 3 other dudes and a security guard who's blocking the men's room because the night crew is cleaning. He sees me walk up to stand with these other guys and says, "Oh, no worries, I'll let y'all in the ladies' room as soon as it's empty." Cool. Like 10 men go by and there's still a lady in the women's room legit fighting for her life. Sounds like food poisoning or something. So the security guard yells into the women's room, "Hey, are you okay? We've got some folks that need to use the restroom." And it gets real quiet. We hear the toilet flush again and then the sink starts running. Next we hear the sound of heels as this lady runs back into the toilet to fight again. I felt so fucking bad for that lady knowing she had an audience for gnarly GI stuff. And what the actual fuck was the security guy thinking? It was at this point God did her solid as the night crew dude pokes his head out and went, "Oh, no problem, just come on in and mind the wet floor." So we all trooped in and did our business in a damp men's room. And I assume hope that lady took that moment to leave.
People at work did a presentation in the auditorium from the ridiculous book, Who Moved My Cheese? And some of them had to portray mice. It was truly awful.
University statistics class. Second day. Everyone there is majoring in some kind of science, so it's not a general education course. Professor has been explaining some of the calculations that will be used in the first lectures, assignments, and tests. One student asked a question. Before the professor could respond, some guy declares, "Who cares?" Everyone knows that 62% of statistics are made up on the spot anyway. The entire class just glared at him, while the professor said something about having respect for the course material. I never saw the guy again in that class or elsewhere.
In my high school, there was a basketball game between two teams, which was very hype, and more than half the school was present during this game. During the halftime show, one of the players came to the middle of the court and proposed to a girl out loud in the stands that if he made a half-court shot, then she would be his prom date. She accepted it and the whole crowd erupted. Everyone started cheering and even his own teammates were quite shocked by what just happened. We did a countdown from 10 and then he shot. Forget missing the hoop, he overshot it so bad that it hit the referee. His team also lost the game as well. BTW. I don't know what else you could call this if it isn't secondhand embarrassment.
I worked in a counseling service that helped people with addiction. There was a phone we had that was strictly used for contacting staff and people in the therapy day group. So the phone had contact info of the staff and vulnerable people. The phone was strictly just for checking, like, if someone didn't turn up, we had to use that phone to check in and see if they were okay. Our supervisor was in charge of this phone. One day she lost it, got caught lying cause she wouldn't admit to her mistake. Instead of coming clean, she doubled down and blamed everyone else, even the clients in the day therapy group. She even blamed me even though it was my day off the day she lost it. I got all the info the next day. Phone was eventually found behind a big pedal bin by one of the day group clients who handed it back immediately. Supervisor then tried to blame that client by saying shit like, isn't it convenient that client magically found the phone? She kept the blame game going for 2 weeks before admitting it was her who misplaced it. She got real quiet after a really long talk with the boss in the boss's office. Scarlet for the supervisor.
Lived in Pittsburgh back in college, and after SNL there was a local dating show where they'd go around to bars and ask people questions, and you could call in if you wanted to date them. One time they were interviewing this really weird guy in an almost empty dive bar, and they asked him what he likes least about women. He answers queefs, and then you see his face sink like he realized what a terrible mistake he'd made. It was brutal.
I was on a commuter train once where one of the regular passengers was a young woman with basically no arms, just hands from her shoulders. One day when she got on the train, a man jumped up and offered her his seat. She yelled loudly loud enough for everyone on the train to hear her, that there was nothing wrong with her legs. It was her arms. He sat back down, red as a beet. I felt so sorry for the guy the whole trip. All he was trying to do was be nice, and he was shamed in front of everyone. I guess I understand that she was tired of having attention drawn to her, but still, it was pretty awful.
I was helping very attractive 20-ish-year-old lady at work. A long-time customer was waiting behind her. The young lady finished, went to leave, opened the door, paused, and let it close without going out. The long-time customer thought she'd left and said to me, "I'd eat the corn out of that girl's shit." Hers. Before I could say anything, she said, "OH. My God," and left. Less than a minute later, her friend who had been waiting in the car came in, looked at the customer and said, "You must be the corn eater," and quickly snapped a photo and ran out the door. I thought he was gonna cry. He deserved it, nobody to blame but himself, but damn, I felt for the guy. This was before cell phone cameras. It was an actual film camera. If she'd been able to share that photo and story on social media, he'd have been forced to move.
I'm a professor at a university, and I stepped in to help cover a couple sections of a public speaking class for a sick colleague. I basically told the class, just do the speeches as long as you're supposed to and you get a B, try and do a good job and you get an A. At this point they were giving persuasive speeches and one student came up to give his speech. He was the last person in the class to give his speech, and I had not really interacted with him as he missed most of the classes where I taught them about persuasive speeches. He was supposed to be giving a speech persuading people to limit their screen time. I had to approve the speech. He didn't turn in his notes the night before like he was supposed to, but whatever, I'm the substitute, let's get through the semester. What he ended up doing was giving an after-school special-style confession about his video game addiction. He started heroin, crack, methamphetamine, cigarettes, hard liquor, sex. All of these things are harmful addictions. But I have an addiction too, one that can be just as harmful, maybe even more harmful. My addiction, you see, is video games. He went on to describe how video games ruined his life and he failed all his classes that semester. I thought to myself, about 3 minutes in, this is painful, someone should do something. Then he said, and my dating life is not existent, I've never kissed a woman. Because of video games. Which is when I realized, oh shit, I'm supposed to be the one doing something. I gave him the "you're over your time, wrap it up" signal, even though he was not close to the 7-minute mark, but he kept going. And goings. I even stood up and had the class clap, but he just talked through it all. And he wouldn't stop laying it all out there about how his mom was disappointed in him. How he felt closer to his favorite Pokemon than his family dog, that he felt he was in love with ROs in games. Eventually I waited until he paused and basically yelled out, "Let's all give student a warm round of applause for his speech on limiting screen time. Now everyone remember that next class we have to." Basically I had to just fully interrupt him and keep talking to end the class. He kept looking like he was going to say more, but I just kept talking until I said, "Well, that's all the time we have. Great speeches, everyone, have a good weekend." I did end up filing a report with the dean of students, suggesting they should encourage him to see a counselor and ask his RA to check on him. But I've never felt so much secondhand embarrassment in my life. And even when I realized I could stop the train wreck, he was just determined to keep going. The worst part, he never turned in his final virtual presentation, and along with low grades before I took over the class, he ended up failing the class. Dude went and did all of that for nothing.
I got promoted to management and had to sit in meetings every day. There was a manager who acted like a tough guy around his subordinates, but when he was in meetings with people above him, he would kiss their asses so hard and so blatantly. It made my skin crawl. It worked because he's still there and they got rid of me.
Someone in a college class had toilet paper hanging out of the top of their pants. It was at least a foot long. We didn't realize until they were giving a presentation, and everyone saw, otherwise would have told them before.
I teach English to students while speaking their mother tongue. Our students are elementary age, and the parents are in the classroom observing every day. It is a very high-pressure teaching environment. New teachers are constantly coming and going and training in my class. There was a new teacher who was training with me. He had anxiety issues, and it was clear to me that he wasn't going to work out. Management felt differently. He was subbing for me while I was out of the country, and when I got back, my boss showed me the video of his teaching. He sat at his desk in front of the class mumbling to himself for 15 minutes, then got up the projector screen and stood in front of it, back to the class, for 15 minutes while mumbling incoherently, then repeated that process for the entire 2 hours. At one point, a parent got up and tried to help him decipher what he was trying to do. He ignored said parent and continued going back and forth between the desk and the screen. A secretary came in to try to help him, and he ignored her too. If that wasn't bad enough, he had another 2-hour class immediately after the first. He did the same thing. I skipped past most of the video thinking it would get better, but never did. After class, he left the school, and we never heard from him again. The students were refunded the class, as he hadn't taught anything. Last I heard, he left the country and teaching, and is working in the oil fields now. It was the worst train wreck I've ever seen.
I play in a wedding band. One member, guy in his 60s, committed suicide. The same summer we played a wedding where a couple, late 60s, got married. 6 months after, the band member's widow showed up at a practice. One member mistook her for the 60s bride. He went on a string of cheesy, naughty comments that might have been funny to a 60s newlywed bride, but not to a new widow. Betcha your weekends keep you busy, so how long did it take you to get out of the hotel room? There's more, I've blocked them in my mind.
Round nosing. Colleague wanted to sing my manager happy birthday in the office. Started singing and got 2 verses in when he was told to stop.
You a kid who auditioned for in reality singing. Joe, he knew he didn't get through, but was excited to show people he was on TV. He didn't realize they basically displayed him as the worst singer of the day and made fun of him after he walked out of the room.
Guy was giving a speech at my college and he called a girl for mocking him. She was translating it into asshole.
Once watched a guy loudly complain about the rude deaf kid on a bus for a solid 3 minutes before the mom turned around. The silence after was so loud even the kid heard it.
Acquaintance told a story in a group about their grandfather racing someone on a stretch of road, getting pulled over, and then saying something that got the cop to chase the other car instead. I forget what. Less than a month later, some of the group are in a car with me driving when one of them starts telling the exact same story as if it was him that was racing got away with it, in a much more animated and overly excited fashion. We let him finish the story and there was an awkward pause before one of them said, "Dude, that was my granddad's story. I just told that story recently." I was already dying from cringe, but the guy doubled down and tried to say that their story must have reminded him of his own story and that it's crazy how similar they were. It was just bad sheesh. The more I got to know him, the more it was obvious he was a pathological liar. Ended up getting arrested for hiding in the women's restroom. His excuse: he'd found